Hello. So I have something a little different today. I'm going to be live reviewing my interaction with Christian apologist Frank Turek. So this took place probably about 6, 7 months ago now at the University of Tennessee, Knoxville. I had read Frank's book, I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist, maybe 5 years ago, and I reread some of the chapters in preparation for attending this event. But I'm going to ask him a few questions. We're going to review my interactions and see how I did. Let's check it out.
Sir.
I'm going to ask my resurrection question, although Judah did inspire my apocalyptic question too, so maybe I'll get back in line afterwards.
All right, go ahead.
So, what would be your explanation for why Jesus and the angels?
Quick preface, I'm going to butcher speaking into this mic, so I apologize some of the audio problems that occurred at the event with me just smacking my lips into the mic.
Told the disciples that they needed to go to Galilee to see him when he was just going to appear to them in Jerusalem and then tell them to stay in Jerusalem.
You're talking about Matthew has him in Galilee and Luke has him in Jerusalem?
Well, yeah, specifically that in Matthew, Jesus and the angels tell the disciples that they need to go to Galilee to see him, but then he just appears to them in Jerusalem in John.
Well, look,
and then he appears to them again in Jerusalem in John.
Okay, look, all right.
So this question that I just asked Frank about the Gospel of Matthew and the Gospel of John are very specific, and you're going to see why I tried to make my question as specific as possible.
Writing is selective. No writer can cover every single event. They all have to decide what they're going to cover and what they're not going to cover. So if Matthew says they went to Galilee and that's where Jesus gave them the Great Commission, that would seem to happen. Luke just leaves that out. He compresses that. And we do that all the time. We don't, in fact, are you married by any chance?
I am not.
All right. Well, when you get married.
My beautiful girlfriend's in the back, but
Oh,
not
hello,
married
beautiful
yet.
Girlfriend. Okay. When you get married, you're going to realize that the way guys tell stories and the way women tell stories are different. Because if I start telling a story and I'm done, she goes, well, you left this out, you left that out. And, yeah, I know. I'm just trying to get to the bottom line, you know.
Yeah.
So
I think what I'm getting at, though, is that I think the resurrection stories contradict significantly.
In what sense?
In the sense that Jesus and the angels tell the disciples that they need to go to Galilee, but instead Jesus just appears in Jerusalem, and then he tells them on that first appearance that they need to stay in Jerusalem.
Okay.
So,
well, again, these.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, each writer can't cover every single event that occurs. All right. Yeah.
But even just granting his traditional authorship, let's just talk about Matthew and John.
Okay.
Right?
Matthew and John or Matthew and Luke? Who are you talking about?
Well, if you piece together all four of the resurrection stories, I think they significantly contradict. But let's make it simpler. Let's just talk about just Matthew and just John.
Okay, hang on a sec. Let's say everything you're saying. Hold on a second. Let's say what you're saying is true. That they do contradict. Okay.
Frank, that is not an answer. That is not an answer to my question, Frank.
Okay, so a little context. What happened here was as Frank was flipping through his slides, one of his slides popped up and it was just a black screen and all it said was, your family's going to die. So that's why you hear the crowd in the background laughing and we're joking around about it.
That wasn't my answer, but I
came here to be friendly, Frank. Come on.
Okay, what?
God, hey there.
Blake, what is this?
That's the Titanic.
Okay, good. This is what happened. This is the Boston Daily Globe the day after the Titanic sank. Titanic sinks, 1,500 die. Carpathia picks up 675 out of 2,200. Races for New York. Survivors mostly women and children. Okay, New York Times says Titanic sinks 4 hours after hitting an iceberg. 186 rescued by Carpathia. Probably 1,250 perish. And they talk about certain people missing. Worst ocean disaster, Nork Advocate in world's history. Titanic goes down.
So you see here how Frank's just reverting to his script of analogies as opposed to actually addressing my question and going on and on trying to obfuscate. But let's keep watching.
Wait a minute. 1341 lives are lost. 868, close to that previous number, but not exactly. Washington Post, before Bezos, 1,800 souls lost. This says 1,800. It says latest wireless from the Olympics, only 675 saved.
Yeah. No.
What should we conclude from this?
I understand the analogy you're trying to make, but I do think this is a little bit of a red herring from what the texts actually say.
No.
I'm trying to talk. We're Matthew and John. Did Matthew and John write Matthew and John?
Yeah, of course.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
yeah.
I disagree.
Why? Who wrote them?
Who wrote them?
Yeah.
We don't know. They're anonymous.
Where does it say they're anonymous?
Where does it say that?
I hate that we got into this because I was just trying to grant traditional authorship to make the point about the stories contradicting. I don't want to get off on this tangent, but obviously this is a topic that Frank has discussed ad nauseum with other people that have asked questions before too.
Every manuscript that we have with a cover page has Matthew, Mark, Luke, or John.
I disagree. P1 doesn't.
Does it have a cover page?
It doesn't. It doesn't attribute it to P1. I don't think it attributes it to Matthew. No.
Well,
we're missing the fly leap off of it, but.
Well, there you go. You're missing it. So let me finish.
I know, but
let me finish the point here. Look at this. What should we conclude from this?
Okay, I'm gonna make this question really simple. Frank, can you tell me about the resurrection of Jesus? What happened? Who was there? Like, what happened at the resurrection of Jesus?
What does every witness say happened to Jesus?
That you gotta be more specific.
That he rose from the dead. Everybody says he rose from the dead. You have different details.
Yeah, I think we got that.
Details on the Titanic. Should we conclude that the Titanic did not sink because of these different details?
Do we have appearances in Mark?
Hold on. Let me ask you the question.
But you're asking me a question.
Let's say for the sake of argument, Blake, you're right. They contradict. What does that prove?
That Matthew and John are not eyewitness testimonies, as most scholars agree.
Oh no. Most scholars don't agree. John in particular.
Sorry, let me.
Okay. John in particular had.
Okay, I regret bringing up references to what the majority of scholars believe. That's just going to be a giant mess, considering the vast majority of New Testament scholars are at Christian universities that have certain codes of faith that have to be adhered to, and that's a whole nother tangent. So definitely regret even bringing that up.
Eyewitness details throughout it.
I disagree because Matthew and John contradict. And let me take my statement back.
Blake, contradiction.
Can we pull up what happened at the resurrection of Jesus?
I'm trying to figure out what your question is. What do you mean?
Can you tell me about the resurrection of Jesus Christ? Specific, who was there? Who was there? Who saw it? What happened?
Well, you'd have to go to the accounts. And some say women were there.
It's almost as if he doesn't seem like he wants to talk about the accounts here.
Women, John gets to the tomb before Peter, and then in the earliest evidence for the resurrection, which is where?
Paul.
Yeah, where is it?
1 Corinthians 15.
Right, 1 Corinthians 15, where he lists 14 people that saw the resurrected Jesus plus another 500. So that's who saw Jesus resurrected. And you know that goes all the way back to the event itself.
I disagree, but that's okay.
Blake, are you a student of this? Do you know what the scholars say?
Oh.
And now you see some of the condescension behind it. And this makes these conversations so difficult with apologists like Frank that are trying to dominate a conversation of, he wants me to just keep granting things, and I regret even stopping him. At some points I should have just let him keep going, but it's frustrating because there's implicit assumption after implicit assumption being granted here as he's trying to weave what he's saying together.
A little bit.
Okay, so what do the scholars say about 1 Corinthians 15, 3-8?
First of all, we can talk about scholarship. I was trying to just keep it specific.
This is where Frank's trying to abuse what scholars call as pre-Pauline and what that actually means, but plenty of YouTubers have talked about this better than I can.
I will see my time because I know there's people behind me too. Okay, I'm sorry.
Okay. What do they say about the earliest evidence for the what does Bart Ehrman say about it?
I don't want to, Frank. I don't want to bring Bart into it.
I do.
But do you understand how, like, I'm asking very specific questions because I want to have, like, specific dialogues about, because I think if a lot of people sat and compared the resurrection accounts and tried to piece them together, they notice that there's significant contradictions.
Let's say you're absolutely right. What does that prove?
These are not eyewitness testimonies from Matthew and John. I think the points you're making in a lot of what you put out there are incorrect.
Eyewitness testimony is known for having varied details.
Not varied details, contradictory details.
Oh, no, that happens all the time. That happens all the time, Blake. In fact, check out...
Majorly contradictions on where it happened, when it happened, and what sequence it happened.
No, first of all, please don't put...
All right, I need to chill out here a little bit. But you see me getting sucked into the apologetic discussion wormhole of Frank just reverting back to these scripts that he has of, oh, of course they can contradict. And we're not actually talking about the ways that I'm trying to point out that they contradict. We're just making general statements. So here you see me getting pulled into the apologetic wormhole of what's actually happening here is Frank's just assuming that everything in the New Testament is true and then trying to work his way backwards to that answer as opposed to actually talking about the data itself. I think Frank's making fun of me breathing in the mic here.
Strangling the mic. Don't touch the mic. All right? Okay. You look at a detective like J. Warner Wallace, okay? If you look at his work, and this isn't just him, but when you look at his work, he will say eyewitnesses always disagree.
On what?
They disagree on details.
On what kind of...
All right, now I'm trying to jump into the apologetic script. I know he's going to go to the whole... Well, J. Warner Wallace is this phenomenal detective, and he says that there are always contradictions in eyewitness testimony. But again, it's the conflation of the details I was talking about versus the details that J. Warner Wallace is trying to point to in any kind of other eyewitness testimony analysis.
Well, it depends on what the issue is. Is it a crime? Was he wearing a red jacket or an orange jacket?
Right, minor details.
Yeah.
Not major details, like where the resurrection happened, when it happened,
no, there are
and who was there.
Blake, let me finish, okay? There are 12 different appearances of Jesus, 12 different occasions where Jesus appears, okay? I could get the book out, but we don't have time right now, okay? 12 different occasions where Jesus appears, all right? Eyewitnesses always agree on the major event. There was a resurrection. There was a sinking of the Titanic. They're going to disagree over details. And if they didn't disagree over details, what would a skeptic like you say? Oh, they colluded. They copied from one another.
Well, you know about the synoptic problem. I know you do, but we don't have to go to that either. I'm saying, no, I understand.
And again, this is Frank just trying to make his arguments unfalsifiable. If there's significant contradictions, that's okay. It's because they're eyewitness testimony. If they agree on things, well, that's because they're eyewitness testimony. Heads, I win. Tails, you lose.
And if a detective like J. Warner Wallace, if he noticed that there were major... If I'm a detective and I get 2 eyewitness testimonies about a miraculous, any kind of event, much less miraculous, and they blatantly contradict of when it happened
and where it happened. That happens all the time, Blake. That happens all the time.
So then in what sense could these ever be falsified?
But the fact it happened is the issue. There is no testimony that we have in the New Testament that says Jesus did not rise from the dead. They all say that, okay? And the creeds go back and say the same thing. So even if you were to find contradictions, that wouldn't negate what the testimony says.
But it shows that there's just different inconsistencies in the testimony.
Well, fine. Let's say for the sake of argument, we're not talking about inerrancy now. Let's say for the sake of argument, they got some details wrong.
Matthew and
John. Just like these people.
Matthew and John that were at the resurrection and saw it, got details blatantly wrong.
Or they may have recorded things that we can't reconcile because they didn't give us enough information.
But the information they do give contradicts. That's what I want to talk about.
Let's say you're right, Blake. That does not disprove that they all say there was a resurrection. Just like all the news reports say that the Titanic sank. Anyway,
Frank,
I'll
get on.
If
There's not much more for me to say.
if Christianity were true, would you become a Christian?
Yes, I was a
and there's the tagline. There it is.
Christian. If you started seeing that, because I know I've followed this ministry for a long time.
Okay. Why did you leave Christianity?
Because I think it's false.
Why?
Because the resurrection stories contradict. I'm going to get to I think Jesus' prophecies failed. I think Jesus is a failed Jewish apocalypticist.
Okay, so I'm just going to ask you one question,
Sure.
and then we can move on.
Yes.
I hate how flustered I'm getting here. This is what I most likely expected was going to happen. I'm trying to fit a lot of information in, but yeah, hate that I get a little flustered here.
I'm sorry.
How, if Jesus didn't rise from the dead, how did an itinerant preacher from an ancient, remote part of the Roman Empire who was crucified as a criminal on a cross become the most influential human being in history?
Frank.
Just these giant, broad statements that we don't have time to sit and break down. And this is very obviously just appealing to people that already believe everything that Frank is saying.
It's a long answer I'm going to have to give to that one. What was happening in first century Palestine at that time?
Get your hand off the mic, please.
I'm sorry.
Step away from the mic, Blake. Okay. You can get close to it, but okay.
In the mic.
So
what was the political context that was going on in first century Palestine at that time? Okay, I'm done.
Okay.
I'll be back.
So, all right. Go ahead, sir.
All right, Frank. Just kidding.
What's your name?
My name, Job.
Joe, go ahead.
With a B.
Job with a B.
You got it. Yeah. All right.
All right, let's jump to the other time I got to ask a question. We got back in line. I was taking up too much time. Tried to let some of the other people speak.
Okay, I won't
Go
touch
ahead.
the
Go
mic.
ahead.
All right, I'm trying to talk a little bit slower this time. And perfect segue into what we were just talking about. So I want to specifically tie it into some of the epistemology that you apply, and you and Geisler apply, and I don't have a faith to be an atheist. So on page 233, you and Geisler say, the inclusion of miracles does not negate the historicity of the New Testament documents, but may actually strengthen their historicity because they record predicted events. A few pages later, you're giving an anecdote where you ask a non-Christian a rhetorical question, and you go, what possible motive did the New Testament writers have to make up the resurrection story if it wasn't true? And then you use similar rhetorical questions throughout the rest of the book. How would you respond, though? It's not just the Olivet Discourse. There's a myriad of New Testament passages that, when taken within their context, seem to demonstrate the failed apocalypticism of Christianity. And I know, for sake of time, I'm not going to go through all of them, but it's just even starting with Paul. In 1 Thessalonians 4:15, he goes, for this we declare to you by the word of the Lord, that we who are alive, who are left until the coming of the Lord, will by no means precede those who have died. For the Lord himself, with a cry of command, with the archangel's call, and with the sound of God's trumpets, will descend from heaven, and the dead in Christ will rise first. And this is Paul writing to the church at Thessalonica, right? Then we who are still alive, who are left, will be caught up in the clouds together, and we will meet the Lord in the air. So we will be with the Lord forever.
Sure, yeah.
Seeming to imply that Paul is telling the church at Thessalonica, some of them are still going to be alive when Jesus comes back. Just two more, if you'll indulge me.
Well, let's just stay on that one for a second.
Okay. I think there's 12 different ones in the New Testament, but we'll stick
Okay.
with that one.
First of all, we don't have time to go through them all.
I understand.
I think Paul is not just writing to the church at Thessalonica. I can't even pronounce that because I already should be in bed. Okay, right now. But anyway, Paul is writing to all believers. Of course, he's initially writing to that church there. And Paul is talking about the second coming. When Jesus comes back, we're going to meet him in the air, and then the dead in Christ will rise. This is, by the way, a great funeral passage. 1 Thessalonians 4, verses 13 to 18. I don't see any contradiction there. And let's say, for the sake of argument, Paul thought Jesus was coming back sooner. Let's say he's got that wrong. Does that mean Jesus didn't rise from the dead?
But you gotta let me answer.
I'm going to electrify that thing, man.
Sorry. Hands are off. Fair enough.
Okay. Yeah. Go ahead.
I'm a hand talker. I apologize.
All right.
So then in 1 Corinthians, I believe it's 7, he does say that he's getting this imminent return from Jesus, from a word of the Lord. So that would create problems.
So this is an aspect that I've had this discussion with other apologists like Dr. Jonathan McClatchy, where a lot of times I'll point out that it's quite evident that Paul expected Jesus to return within that generation. And they'll go, well, so what if Paul got it wrong? And it's like, well, that dramatically calls into question Paul's legitimacy as somebody who's communicating divine commands from the Lord. If one of these pieces of information was, I'm coming back soon, and Paul got that wrong, why should we trust the other things that Paul is saying?
With this whole notion of Paul is having direct contact with Jesus. And then we see in 1 Peter.
Okay, hold on. Okay, Blake. This is something we need to sit down and look at every passage and see the context, okay? You seem really hell-bent, forgive the expression, on trying to disprove Christianity. Why?
So I don't think that's respectful. I am trying to get valid answers. And to be honest, I'll be 100% honest, Frank. I follow this ministry for a long time. I don't think I'm changing your mind. What you do, no vitriolic response, none of that.
No.
I think a lot of what you do, though, paints caricatures of atheists and what atheists actually think and why people leave the faith. And a lot of people, and especially when I first became a Christian, were not exposed to the arguments from the other side. And I don't think you always fairly represent the other side. And I think the failed apocalypticism, as I think a lot of scholars that are not at specific seminaries, they are aware of these arguments, and I think it is a huge problem. And I say it epistemically, too, because in your book, you talk about prediction being evidence for Christianity, right? Predictions from the Old Testament of Jesus fulfilling that. But then what happens when these prophecies fail in the New Testament is they get reinterpreted, or things get read into the text, or I think they are determined to be metaphorical or spiritual. And we see this in a lot of
Okay, Blake, all right.
Can I please finish? And then I'm out. And I think what's happening is you're making predictions unfalsifiable. And as I think you would agree, any hypothesis that is unfalsifiable isn't actually providing, there's no evidence based on an outcome. It's heads I win, tails you lose. You can't disprove it. And
Okay.
That's it.
Yeah. What's your motivation for doing this?
Frank, I think that's just...
Well, we'll see what I say here, and then I'll talk about Frank's line of questioning.
Anyways, I want to actually talk about what is in this, and you're asking about my motivation.
Blake, hold on. You can't get in front of a microphone and bring up 12 problems. If it's not a debate.
One problem.
Okay, we dealt with one of them, maybe two of them. 1 Thessalonians, whatever you brought up, okay?
Can I ask a specific question? Like epistemic question.
Go ahead.
How would you know if these prophecies are wrong? In what way could these predictions ever be disproven? That's my question.
What predictions?
The predictions of the New Testament that Jesus was coming back.
Well, we can't disprove them because he hasn't come back yet.
And that, my friends, is what we like to call circular reasoning.
Okay.
But you're assuming we're making a circular argument. Because we're assuming a conclusion that it is true.
Blake, hold on. I don't even know if we make a case, and I don't have enough faith to be an atheist, that Jesus coming back is giving us evidence for Christianity. Mm-hmm. We're focused in on truth, God, miracles, Jesus rising from the dead. You understand that, right?
Truth,
okay, so the next question you need to deal with, which is sort of questions you're bringing up, we're trying to show that the Bible's true. The next question is, what does the Bible say?
Yeah.
We don't deal with that, and I don't have enough faith to be an atheist to a great degree, okay? Because, look, the
we want to show that the Bible's true, but we don't want to actually talk about what it says. I love it. I love it.
Book's already too long, okay? We're just trying to show the basic argument as to why we think it's true.
Okay.
Let's say it's not inerrant. I think it is, but let's say it's not.
If Jesus failed to come back,
is this inerrant? No, it's not inerrant. But did the Titanic sink? Yes. You wouldn't have documents written.
And I'm laughing about this, but it really is so frustrating to play the game of speaking with Christian apologists. And this is coming from somebody who was very into Christian apologetics, wanted to be a Christian apologist, wanted to defend the true faith. These are not real conversations. These are, I and people that are actually cross-examining what somebody like Frank Turek is saying. You're arguing against a script, and you're not going to win, but it is interesting to try and discuss against it.
By Jews in the first century claiming a man claimed to be God and rose from the dead, unless that really happened because they paid with their lives for it.
Okay, last part, let's transition to that. Was there not a strong desire among Jewish people at the time for a messianic figure?
Yeah, there's at least 20 different messiahs. They're all dead.
Was there not an expectation within that political culture of a Messiah coming to save them from Roman oppression?
Exactly, and Jesus didn't do it.
I agree.
So
I remember when he said that, I was like, what?
Why do they claim he's the Messiah if Jesus didn't do what they wanted him to do?
Are you aware?
Because he rose from the dead.
Okay, and I think it can be explained through cognitive dissonance theory that applies to certain groups. Thank you for your time, Frank. I
Okay,
appreciate
thank you, Blake. Job.
I'm back.
We're back to more suffering. Go ahead.
First, that was the suffering. First of all, wouldn't you say it's kind of God?
Yeah, that guy was really rude to me. Some of the people here were really nice, though. I want to give credit to this event. I met some people, and you see that one guy chatting with me as I'm walking off. There were some very nice people there. They really appreciated that I came and was even willing to discuss this. And yeah, some very kind people, but then also some not very kind people, as you saw here. I hope this video reaches somebody that is shoving Christian apologetics down somebody's throat, as I was shoving down my own throat years ago. This is a game, this is a script, and we're not actually trying to analyze anything. And this is, before this whole Q&A session, we sat through Frank's I Don't Have Enough Faith to Be an Atheist presentation. He's going through his slides, and at one point he's really mocking secular universities. And it's the ridiculousness of scrutiny, of Frank's response to scrutiny here, how he deals with scrutiny, how he's dealing with questioning, that shows you the difference between the level of rigor when it comes to thought at these evil secular universities versus in pop Christian apologetics. So definitely wish I calmed down a little bit, definitely wish I didn't breathe into the mic so much and was a little more focused in responding to some of Frank's questions, but yeah, won't be going back to do this, but it was a very interesting exercise. So hopefully you all enjoyed watching my reactions. Let me know if you guys want to see more interactions with Christian apologists. Thanks.